Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another one of my videos today. So today I was thinking like, what fun video could I do which I haven't done before and would be something different, shake it up a little bit. And it was 5 things that I've learned along my spiritual journey. And I thought this would be a really good video to film, to share some tips and tools with you, to share some pearls of wisdom of what I've learned over the last 5 years since I spiritually awakened. I cannot believe it's 5 years ago nearly. Like, time flies, right? And so much has happened over those 5 years. So much has happened. Oh my gosh, so much. I've released 2 books and a journal published. I've done so much. So much. So I thought this would be a good little video to do. 5 things, 5 years for anybody who's on their spiritual path. Maybe you've been spiritual way longer than me and this might help. Or maybe you're just spiritually awakening and this could help you along your journey. So obviously there are so many different things that you know, I've tried out, I've done over my spiritual journey. I've talked about a lot of this over on my podcast. You know, obviously if you're familiar with my story, I came across the law of attraction to start off with, and that's what I'm most passionate about. And then my spirituality has just deepened and deepened and deepened and deepened over the years. And I have transformed and deepened and gone through so many different versions of myself over those 5 years, which I'm sure anybody watching this can totally agree with as well, that the spiritual path is a continuous path. So I better get into my steps before I reveal it all. But what I mean by this is my first step of healing and lessons do not stop. And I think this is such a misconception about spiritual awakenings or about spirituality, is that when you have your spiritual awakening, no matter what the circumstances are, that like, that's it, oh, all the hard work's out, now I'm awake, now I'm positive, it's all gonna be breezy. Now, don't get me wrong, it's slightly easier when you're spiritually awakened because you are aware, you're conscious, you have the tools and the techniques and the awareness to take action, to heal, to work through things. Whereas before we were all doing it blindly, right? Or maybe avoiding it altogether and suppressing it. So healing and lessons never stop. We are in the classroom of life. You will keep learning and keep having lessons and blessings and healing until your last breath here on this earth. That is what we are here to do. So, you know, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about, you know, when you spiritually awaken, that's the only spiritual awakening you have, which I'm going to cover in a second. But I think the one thing that has helped me along my journey in the tough times, in the unbearable times, in the ridiculously happy times over the last 5 years is that, you know, there's so much beauty in that healing. There's so much beauty in that healing, and healing is not linear. Healing happens in layers. And, you know, if you go into your spiritual journey with, say, like, you know, mine was self-love, for example, if you like go in with self-love and then you have that self-love, like I look and I'm like, whoa, over the 5 years those lessons have deepened, more things have come up, inner child healing came up. Like, it's so interesting how you see like the puzzle pieces like come together as such with that healing, and it's continuous. You'll heal a layer, then another layer will come up, and then, you know, you'll heal that wound and then something else in your life. And, you know, it's not necessarily like a constant you're doing the work kind of thing, although sometimes it can feel like that. You know, give yourself breaks, of course. And of course, again, that's not going to be like that every single year of your life. You know, we're cyclic beings, so sometimes we will be more inwards, sometimes we'll be more outer. And obviously right now in the collective for 2020 and 2021, it is the years of inner work. So, you know, we're all being called to do that. It's not just you. So I think with the themes of what's going on in the world right now as well, it can definitely feel like maybe it's quite continuous and it's like, and so many people are spiritually awakening as well right now, especially during 2020. So, you know, people finding this video, like, I hope these tips help, because I think sometimes we are like, oh, I've done it all, I'm fine. And then when something comes up, it can sometimes like really like shock you or be like, what? I thought I healed this. So my number one thing that I've learned over my spiritual awakening is, or many spiritual awakenings, is that, you know, healing and lessons, they're going to be there. They're going to be there and they're going to teach us stuff. There's still beauty in them. And, you know, the journey doesn't stop. The lessons don't stop. The healing doesn't stop. But with the spiritual awakening, it activates that and it is the most rewarding work that you will do, as well as some of the hardest work. But hey, we signed up for this, guys, it's all good. So my number 2 lesson that I want to share is that you have multiple awakenings. This is a bit like what I was touching upon earlier of, again, massive misconception that you have one spiritual awakening and that's it. You're awake, you're woke, and life's all groovy. And yes, definitely you are. Once you're woke as such. But I think, you know, there are so many different awakenings. I'm going through a twin flame journey 3 years ago. Yep. That definitely was a great awakening. I've had dark nights of the soul because of that journey, because of, like, you know, just me up leveling in general. So again, like, there have been many dark nights of the souls, many awakenings, obviously not as abrupt as what I had 5 years ago, but on like different levels. Like, they're not really comparable. It's like different levels of awakenings as such, which some will experience and some won't. So again, you know, it's realizing that, and you know, one thing I always say to people is, like, every year I feel like I've met a new version of myself, and everybody agrees with me on that one. So I'm sure anybody watching is like, hell yes, I agree with that fully, if you've been here a while, been on this journey for a while. So again, like, don't just think there's the one awakening. You will go through many awakenings in your life, because we're cyclic beings. And the one thing that really helped me along my spiritual journey was to really connect to that divine feminine energy and to balance that for myself, but also learning about cyclic natures, like the death rebirth cycle that we all experience as humans. You know, even things like numerology has really empowered me over the last year and taught me, you know, we're always going through these cycles of death, rebirth, you know, and this is why we meet new versions of ourselves regularly, is because we are up leveling, we're healing, we're ascending, we're doing the work that we signed up here to do, that were collectives up leveling as well. So, you know, all those kind of like levels as such that you're acing with your spiritual work, you know, each time you're kind of up leveling, and you know, you as a person is going to up level, you know, as you're going through those lessons, as you're going through those blessings, as you're going through those mini awakenings or your main spiritual awakening, you're going to keep, you know, meeting a new version of yourself. And that's a really beautiful thing as well to do, like to come home to yourself more and more each year, to know yourself truly, to love yourself truly, unconditionally love yourself, and meet that version of yourself, and you know, become friends with that new version of yourself as well. So I think it's a really exciting thing, you know, again, not sitting here, I mean, I'm 27, like there's many years ahead of me to learn things, but I think, you know, that has been a great thing for me to witness, because as I go through my Saturn return as well, great time to pick a Saturn return, Emma, during a pandemic. You know, I think as well, like the main theme of that has definitely been to know myself even more and to shed those kind of like maidenhood layers as such, to go into my adult years, as adult Emma as such. So it's been interesting, like it's interesting to see those shifts and that transformation, and to feel more and more at peace with each year, and you know, each layer that comes up as such. So definitely you will have multiple awakenings, maybe not as intense as the original one, but you will have dark nights of the souls throughout your life. Again, there's no set rule with this. Some people might not have, you know, loads, some people might have a few, depends what your work is, depends what your inner work is and what needs to come up. Number 3 is everything happens for a reason. And I think I knew this probably before I spiritually awakened, but I think now more than ever is when I truly embody that, and I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Everything is always happening for our highest good, and everything happens for a reason. And I think as well, it's important to remind ourselves of that, especially now with everything that's going on in the world, that yes, we may not know why all of that is happening right now, but on a personal level, in our personal life, you know, we can see that anytime we think we've lost something, or anytime something negative has happened in our life, it's always been replaced. Everything is always being replaced with something better, right? And you know, I think that's another big quote that I love to follow is, you know, nothing is ever taken, everything is merely transformed by the universe. And I think that has been hard to remember sometimes, but you know, something that I keep coming back to. And definitely everything happens for a reason. So the fact that you spiritually awakened happened for a reason, you know, it was part of your soul contract, you signed up to do that. You know, your purpose is everything happens for a reason. So every experience that we're having, both positive or maybe what we would deem as negative, is all leading us to exactly where we're meant to be. And I think the one thing that brings comfort, well, definitely has brought me comfort along my spiritual journey, it might and hopefully it does for you as well, is knowing that you're always exactly where you're meant to be. And again, sometimes that can feel hard, like a bitter pill to swallow sometimes, but I'm going to cover this in a later step more because I feel like it's more connected to that. But everything happens for a reason, and when we can surrender to that and really allow ourselves to truly be present, because I think a lot of the time throughout my the first year or 2 years, or maybe even 3 years actually, of my spiritual awakening, or since I spiritually awakened, I really struggled to be present. I really struggled to get present. I was future tripping the whole time, which just caused me so much unease and caused me so many more issues, like self-inflicted issues, than was needed. So I think, you know, connecting to that feminine energy again massively helped me. You know, connecting to myself, healing when things were coming up, like working with great people, doing that inner work myself, going along my book journeys, all of this, you know, every single part of that has led me to exactly where I am now as this version who's the happiest they've ever been, is, you know, happy, manifesting, like all of these things. So at the time they were awful. Like at the time it did not feel like that, and it did not feel like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But now I realize, looking back, and hindsight's a beautiful thing, right, where, you know, you can connect those dots and say, actually I needed that because now I can sit here and with that new awareness, with that new vibration, feeling how I wanted to feel as such. So everything happens for a reason is my point here, and always trust that you're exactly where you're meant to be. Number 4 is our intuition is paramount. I can never say that. Paramount, one of the two. So our intuition is like, oh my gosh, if I could probably pick any of these tips, I would be like, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Your intuition is never wrong. And I think a lot of the time many people ask, like, how can I connect to my intuition, Emma? Like, how can I get that voice? You know, how can I hear it? And it's always there. Even when before we spiritually awakened, our intuition was always there. And everybody has intuition. Every single person is able to sense things, to predict things, you know, like what a psychic does. Okay, psychics are more clear channels, of course, but every single person has the ability to trust their intuition, to know their intuition, for their intuition to speak loudly and for them to guide them. And I think one of my biggest lessons was truly trusting in my own power and in my own sovereignty of my intuition. I think a lot of the time I would put my power in other people's hands, and that definitely was a big lesson for me, to reclaim that power, to take my own power back, and to realize realize that I could do that for myself and I could give that to myself. So I think that is a lot of people's lessons, to be honest, is realizing like your innate power and realizing, you know, like taking back your power, reclaiming your power. You know, so many things in life disempower us, like just every single day things, not even conscious things that sometimes we're aware of. So even, you know, like saying like I call back my power, I reclaim my power is such an important mantra to say, you know, frequently, or I call back the lost pieces of myself, because, you know, we give away so much of our energy to numerous things, and actually when we can pull that power back into ourselves and ground ourselves and center ourselves, you know, maybe that chaos or that uncertainty that we were feeling, once we bring that focus back to ourselves and sit within our worth, sit within our power, like those answers are going to be there. Always is. And sometimes even I still forget this. So definitely I would say like your intuition is your biggest roadmap in this spiritual journey. It'll be the best thing that you can work on and develop. And it's like a muscle, just like at the gym. You can't just turn up at the gym and expect to have a 6-pack on the first day, like hashtag manifesting. Well, I don't want a 6-pack. You know what I mean here. So what I mean by this is that it takes time to build. And I started working on my intuition when I was 16 years old. So even way before I spiritually awakened. So that was 11 years ago. So 11 years ago, like I started getting into Buddhism, I started getting into meditation. That's when my intuition, over a 6-month period of meditating every single day with no expectation. Obviously that stuff wasn't really mentioned in this Buddhist book that I was reading. Over 6 months of just sitting there in like darkness and meditation state, these things started to come through. And over that period from like 16 to like my early 20s, when I did spiritually awaken, You know, obviously I would get intuitive hits, but I was, you know, I wasn't spiritual, I was suppressing it. So I would get intuitive hits, and then as soon as I spiritually awakened, boom, it up leveled a whole ton. And again, I've had to sit with that, I've had to nurture that. There are times that I sit there and doubt it. Of course, I'm human, we're all human, these things happen, but my intuition is one of the things that I knew was always going to be the strongest, and is always dead spot on about things, mainly for other people more than myself, funnily enough, but it is something that I sit with, and I'm always like listening, and I trust it now. And I think when we can really use that internal sat nav and our intuition, you can never go wrong. Our intuition is always guiding us for the highest good. Our intuition knows. Your gut always knows. So, you know, you will have those experiences where you've known someone was going to call and then they do. This is one I'm a stickler for. I'll think about someone and then they'll text or they'll call, and I'm like, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. So we all have those moments, right? So this is our intuition coming through loud and clear. So listen to those moments, celebrate those moments when you do like have those intuitive hits, and follow it. You know, action your intuition as, you know, as it feels good to. So a good thing to do if you're like, I can't even hear mine ever, is when you're making decisions, is it a hell yes or a hell no? Does it feel like a hell yes to do this? If not, it's a hell no, or it's a wait. So even just using that game is quite good to listen, to tune into decision making. And you know, you're always exactly where you're meant to be, remember? So you're already following your intuition without probably consciously knowing it, but you can hear it louder when you sit still and listen. So quieting the mind, breath work really helps, meditation massively helps to really quieten the mind, to be able to get into that state where you are centered and grounded. When we're chaotic, when we're future tripping, when we're freaking out, the intuition can't get through. There's no space. You're not going to hear it. You're just going to hear the ego, the inner child coming through, panicking. So that's why, you know, like meditation, yoga, breath work, like when you're in those relaxed states where you're calling back your power and you're in that present moment, allows you to truly hear that intuition. And things like oracle cards and tarot cards absolutely help and nurture and guide that intuition, because they're all done based upon your vibration and the law of attraction anyway. So oracle cards and tarot cards are quite good to help build that intuition. But trust yourself. Trust yourself. Even if you're like, what? I haven't got this. Like, what are you on about? Trust yourself. Even if you don't feel that you have that capability or power right now, trust it. Because the more that you trust those answers, those niggles, those feelings that come to you, every single time you listen to it, every single time you take action upon those, it will get stronger, because you'll be listening to it and cultivating that relationship, building that muscle, which is our intuition. So absolutely, intuition is key with your spiritual journey. And a lot of people will say to me like, oh, but my intuition was wrong about this or wrong about that. And there are so many things that can contribute to that. That's what I want to say. It's not that you're wrong. It could be that you needed to see it in that way at that time for you to learn the lesson that you needed to. It could be timeline shifts. I mean, now we're going like really out there with spirituality. If anybody's new, they're going to be like, what is this, Emma? So I'll keep it simple. There are so many things that do affect our intuition as well. Collective things, universal things. You know, I've had stuff where I've seen stuff clear as day, and then couple years on, it's like, whoa, like timeline shift, like totally made a different decision, or maybe it was like a possibility, but do you know what I mean? There's so many different things. So I would say like trust your intuition, but take it with a pinch of salt. Of as long as you know you're doing everything for your highest good, you will always get to where you need to be. And my fifth and final tip or lesson or thing that I want to share with you about a spiritual awakening, or what I've learned along my journey, is that everything in the end is going to be okay, and if it's not, then it's not the end. One of my favorite quotes that my lovely friend Emma always shares with me, and it's so true, and this is what I wanted to say earlier on when I was like, I'll circle back to this later. Ask yourself now, if you're sat there like, I really want this manifestation, why is this manifestation not happening? Sit there and ask yourself, if you received your manifestation here and now, if I like waved a magic wand and you got it here and now, would you be in the right place to receive that? Are you truly 100% actually ready to receive that and keep it? The answer is always going to be no. My answer would be no to the things that I'm trying to manifest as well. And the reason why is, you know, we want those things, we attach to them, we're like, oh, it'd be great if that happened. And, you know, sometimes we're like, where is it? Like, I'm doing everything. And sometimes that's the problem. We're doing too much. So again, like taking back your power, taking that step back and realizing, okay, you're on a journey here. You're on a journey. And if everything is not okay right now, it's not the end. And it's, you know, again, keeping yourself present, bringing yourself to that present moment, grounding, listening to that intuition, all these steps flow into one another here. And bringing it back to knowing that, okay, you're on a journey and everything's energy. So if you were truly ready, even if you were saying, yes, Emma, I am ready. If you were truly ready, like true full body ready energetically, it would be here, because everything is energy, right? And I've noticed every single time, like not one manifestation is out of foot here. Every single manifestation I've ever received has only happened when I've actually been a full body yes, when I've been truly ready to receive, truly in alignment, and truly in that place to keep it as well. So it can be quite hard, because you might be like, well, I'm doing all this work, how am I not in that place still? And I think it's, again, remembering you're exactly where you need to be right now. Maybe there's some new lessons that are going to come in. Maybe there's slightly a bit more of awareness, or something that needs to happen for you to see the full picture, to be like, yes, now I'm ready. And again, you want to be in the best place to receive that manifestation. There is no point sitting there arguing with me, being like, but Emma, I really want this now, I'm ready, because even if you know you're not ready, because you wouldn't be able to keep it, right? And there's no point manifesting for the sake of manifesting if you're not going to be able to keep it, and it's not sustainable, and it's not for your highest good, right? It's pointless, because it won't stay anyway. So it's better to take that time to get present, to get still, to come home to yourself, to do the work that maybe is coming up, to trust that intuition, to allow, just be, like, stop pushing so much and allow yourself to receive. Because, you know, hello, I've been there. Because sometimes we do too much. So if you're meeting yourself at that 50% mark and you're co-creating with the universe, and patience, and knowing that the universe's timing is always better than yours, again, another lesson I've learned along this journey, you will thank the universe so freaking much when it does arrive, and you're like, now was the perfect time. So keep reminding yourself of that. If you were truly, 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 truly in that place to receive that desire right now, it would be here. So take that and journal with it. Say, right, why do I not feel ready for it? If you were like, oh God, that was a bit truthful. Like, why do I not feel ready for it? Journal upon that and inquire with that, because then you'll see where the work needs to be done, or maybe that work's going to be revealed to you really soon and you're not quite sure of it just yet. So allow it, just allow it to come to you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It was really fun to film, something a bit different from usual, right? So I definitely want to do more videos like this in the future. And here's to 5 years, whoop whoop. Well, it's 5 years in April, so I've got a couple more months left, but I thought now was a good time to film this video, right? We probably need it now more than ever. But yeah, what a crazy ride. And I'm sure the next 5 years, half a decade, is just going to be even more transformational. And I'm filming a video in 5 years time, another half a decade, being like, oh my gosh, like this happened and this is what I've learned since that point. So I think these videos are always good to do, to reflect, to share, and to help anybody else who is like, I need help right now, I'm on this journey. Because it can be a lot, right? It can be lonely, it can be a lot, it can be a lot. So at least you know that you're not alone with the multiple awakenings, with some of the other stuff. Like, everybody feels those things and everybody goes through these things, abso-freaking-lutely. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me for another one of my videos. I appreciate all your views and likes. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because I would love to see you again soon. And don't forget, you can join my free Law of Attraction support group as well over on Facebook. The link's down below, where you can join myself and other like-minded souls, where we talk all things Law of Attraction and spirituality. Don't forget to leave me a comment in the comments box down below, because I replied to them all. I would love to hear what your top tips or things you would share along your spiritual journey is, to help inspire everybody else watching as well, because I'm sure everybody else would love to hear what has happened for you along your journey and what your biggest takeaway is as well. And I'll see you all in my next video, which will be next week. Lots of love, guys.